This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. So what we're going to speak about today, we have two Shiurim. The first one is Purim, a halachic subject. The second one is more Divrei Agadata. Okay, this one is Mamish Nagea Lamaisa, and it's somewhat of a frightening Inyan, and not Pashat at all. First of all, we know in the Gemara Masechta Megillah, there are four opinions of Tanoim, how much of the Megillah we need to learn. There's the opinion of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Meir holds Tzarech L'Kroisa Kula. Rabbi Yehuda holds from Ish Yehudi. Rabbi Yossi from the it's a machlokes. The four Tanoim. Rabbi Yossi holds from Achar Dor Ma'ila. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Balayla Hahu. But we paskin like Rabbi Meir, and we discuss this. We hold Tzarech L'Kroisa Kula. You need to hear the whole Megillah. Okay, you need to hear you have to read from the beginning. And therefore the Mishnah says, V'huli ikuva, it's ma'akev. Hearing the whole Megillah is ma'akev. V'das roiv ha'poiskim, sha'afilum chisar mena rak teva achas lo yatsa. Let's say you came late to Megillah Esther, and you came when they said, Bimei achashveroish, hu achashveroish. Right? You just missed the word vayehi. Lo yatsa. You don't get 80% credit, you don't get 99% credit, you get 0 credit. You didn't hear the Megillah, you're not yotze the mitzvah.
Can't you catch up yourself?
There are a lot of things you could do, but if you didn't, you're not yotze. Okay, so now the question is though, what if a person did hear every word, but he was not really focused and listening to every word? For example, let's say a person checks their phone in the middle of the Megillah. Or let's say a person learns in the middle of the Megillah, Vadai lo yatsa. Let's say you get a phone call. By the way, the same thing in the Shiur. Just like you can't check your phone during a Shiur. You can't check your phone. First of all, not derech eretz for the Rebbe. It's not derech eretz for anybody else. It's just like you can, obviously your phone is off during the Shiur. You can't check your phone during the Megillah. If you check your phone during the Megillah, lo yatsa. Why? But I heard the word. What if a person says, you know what, I'm just going to go on the shul, and I'm going to listen to Megillah, and I'm going to learn Gemara while I'm at it. Lo yatsa. So what are you talking about, lo yatsa? Why lo yatsa? Well, look at number 3. This comes from a sefer, Kuntra Shiurei Halacha. The Kuntra Shiurei Halacha of Reb Shmuel Felder is one of the poskim in Lakewood today. It says, V'nei zeh pashut, shem kovea atzmai lo moed oy la'ayin b'dvarim acherim be'es hakriya, to lo yatsa. It's obvious that if you establish yourself to learn or to look into other things during the Kriya, one of these papers on the table. I don't know why they put papers out on the table in the shul. Parsha papers. For what? For what? You're not able to look at it during Kaddish. You're not able to look at it during Chazar Sashatz. You're not able to look at it during Kriyas HaTorah. When are you allowed to look at it? When davening's over, everybody goes to the Kiddush. I never saw anyone reading a Parsha booklet during a Kiddush. So what are the Parsha booklets for? But anyway, if let's say a person looks at the Parsha booklets during the Megillah, lo yatsa. Well, there's no question the sound waves, the vibrations that emanated from the Balkare hit your eardrums. So I heard it. What do you want from my life? All I need to do is hear. The answer is we have to establish what is listening. What is listening? Listening is not the words hit my eardrums. Sorry. Listening is not the words hit my eardrums. Listening is not that the sound hit my eardrum because I was there. Listening means you're thinking about what you're hearing. Otherwise, it's not listening. Okay, so we've just established the following. Listening is not that the sound hit my eardrum. Listening is that you're paying attention to what you're hearing. He brings the raya in the footnote, the following raya. The Gemara says in Megillah, Daf Gimel, Mivatlan Talmud Torah. Mikra Megillah, we're mevatel Torah to go hear the Megillah. I have a very simple question. What do you mean mevatel Torah? It's not bittul Torah. You know why? Because I learned Gemara during the Megillah Sester, and I won't be mevatel Torah. Why does the Gemara say mevatel Torah? It's not bittul Torah. I'll learn during Kriyas Torah. The answer is, you'll learn, but you won't be yotze the mitzvah of Mikra Megillah. So you see from here that if you learn during Mikra Megillah, lo yatsa. Okay, we're good with that? That's the premise of the shiur. Yeah?
Not necessarily, you don't have to follow it.
What?
As long as you pay attention.
Right now we're saying that it's not enough to hear it, you have to be thinking about the word that's being said. Fine. The kivan shekain. That being the case, hadavar pashut. It is obvious. What if somebody is listening to the Megillah, but in the middle his mind starts to wander? He starts to think, when's the baseball season starting? When is the draft? When's the NFL draft? A lot of things on people's mind. How am I going to pay my bills this month? A lot of things people think about. What's going to be? When's the davening going to be over? When are the people going to stop talking and disturbing? There are a lot of things that people could be thinking about. If your mind wanders, la yasa. Why? Because the mitzvah is to hear, and hearing, we've established, is not that it hit your eardrum. You're thinking about it. Well, with the few moments that your mind wandered, you weren't thinking about it. So you said that nobody ever in the history of the universe was ever yotze Mikra Megillah. Well, that's the problem. That's the issue we need to deal with over here. How is it humanly possible to be yotze Mikra Megillah? It's not enough that it hits your eardrum. You need to be thinking about it. But who could possibly be thinking about every word? I mean, most people, most human beings, their minds will wander during Megillah Esther a total of 1,000 times. Right? The way the human mind works, the Sefer Cheshbon HaNefesh writes, you could in the middle of Shemona Esrei, you could travel the world. Right? First what you do is, in the middle of Shemona Esrei, you think, I didn't really like breakfast this morning. I hope I have a better breakfast tomorrow. Tomorrow I have a dentist appointment. But the dentist was born in New Jersey. I have a cousin who lives in New Jersey who just went to South Africa. In 3 seconds, you traveled around the world. Right? So that's the way the mind works. So how are you supposed to be yotze Mikra Megillah? The kivan sheken adar pasha gam mi shroitz shma kris megam noisen daite likriyasa ela the rem sakrel vali panel dor machem venimsa shloi sam liba ezatevos. If you weren't focusing la yatsa, because regarding those words it should be like you didn't hear it. So you say you're being very machmer over here. You're telling me that a listener needs to be focused on the word for it to be considered hearing? Why should that be? Maybe we have a more liberal definition of listening. Listening means that it hit your eardrum and you liked the fact that it hit your eardrum. How do we know we have such a strict definition of listening? Ladies, please no conversation. Thank you. So that's the question. How do we know halachically that the definition of listening is that you need to focus on the word that is being said? Okay. So we're going to bring a number of rayas that halachically, that anytime you utilize shomea ka'ina, if you daydream, shomea ka'ina does not work. So this is a very important halacha. Let's say during Kiddush. If you're not making Kiddush, you're listening to Kiddush.
You have to be.
Are people really listening? They're there in the room. They're somewhat listening. Are they focused on the words being said? Not really. Well, that's a problem. But it's not as much of a problem as Megillah Esther. You know why? Because Kiddush, if you space out for certain words of Kiddush, as long as you heard the Baruch Atah in the beginning and the Mekadosh HaShabbos at the end, you're good to go. So you missed a few words in the middle. But Megillah, we paskin sarach l'koisa kula. It's the most chamor thing. You have to hear every word. So if you spaced out and you didn't hear every word, is that problem? Well, let's try to bring some substantiation to this idea that listening has a higher definition. Look at number 4. Let's say someone forgot Yalav Yavai on Rosh Chodesh. Oy b'chulo shamoid, or on Chalamoid. Oy b'chol davar shetzarach lachzor b'shloi. Or somebody, let's say, omitted something that they would have to repeat the Shemona Esrei. Yechavein daitoi v'yishma mishatz kol yerches brachas. Very interesting eitzah. Right, here's a guy, it's Rosh Chodesh, and he forgot Yalav Yavoy. It's Chol HaMoed, he forgot Yalav Yavoy. Or let's say it's this time of the year, he forgot V'sein Talamat Levracha, and he has to repeat Shemona Esrei. Very simple eitzah. Stop, and wait for the Shel Tzibor, and he'll say Shemona Esrei, and you'll be Yotzei Shemea Ka'ina. So Yechavein daitoi v'yishma mishel tzibur kol yerches brachas ma'rosh v'yad soif ka'adam sh'maspal atzmai. So stop, stand with your feet together, v'lo yafsik, don't interrupt, v'lo yasiach, don't talk, and you'll take 3 steps back. Why? The kivan shekvar spal el sheshach v'lo hisker afal pi shuhu baki shel tzibur moitziai. Even though normally shel tzibur is only moitzi, einoi baki, but this guy already davened. Elamai, he forgot. He could be yotzei with the shel tzibur. Fine, interesting eitzah, right? That somebody forgot Yalav Yavoy, he could just listen to the Shel Tzibur. Says the Mishnah Brura, you can't do it. Why? Look on the 3rd line of the Mishnah Brura. Ayin ba'achroinim. Look in the achroinim shekasvu. Demutav sheyachzar v'yispalel ba'atzmai. Better to daven yourself, like we do. Why? Deha'idna lav kol adam yachal lechavein daite l'shmaya mishatz mirosh v'yad soif. Most people cannot be mechavein and not allow their mind to divert from the beginning until the end. Who could stand there for 5 minutes without their mind wandering? Nobody could do that. V'shema lavava yifna. If you daydream or you get distracted, v'lo yishma mishatz ezamilas, and you don't hear from the Shel Tzibur a few words, hama'akvim b'tfila, that are ma'akim in the tefillah, then you're not yotzei.
What makes it better? Go still Shemona Esrei by yourself?
Because you said it. You said it. But now you're being yotzei with shmiya. If your mind,
In other cases,
what is the problem? If you say the word, the mitzvah is to say the words. I said the words.
You're not going to do the same thing the second go around. We had another situation.
No, there's 1 second. When you say the Shemona Esrei, the mitzvah is to say the words. I said the words. Doesn't matter what you think. There's no halacha that if your mind wanders when you say the words, there's a problem. But now you're trying to be with shmiya, and we've defined what we see from the Mishnah Brura is shmiya means focused on the words, not that you heard the words, focused on the words. And if your mind wanders for a moment during a word, which is ma'akev, la yatsa. So you see from here very clearly, that the definition of shmiya is not that it hit your eardrum. Definition of shmiya is what? That your mind was focused on the words. So let me ask you a question. What's longer, Megillah Esther or the Chazor Sashatz? Megillah is 5 times the size. And if the Shabru is saying that nobody could do Shemea Ka'ina on Chazor Sashatz, then Kavachoymer, Ben Benoishel Kavachoymer, nobody could do Shemea Ka'ina on Megillah Esther. So this is a problem. Because if we're not anymore nowadays using Shemea Ka'ina on something so long, then how could you use it on something much longer? Another proof. Look at number 6. Really Meikar Hadin during Mezumin, if you're making a Mezumin, the Mezamein not only says Rabbi Sarman Velam Benchen, he also says the entire benching out loud and everybody else just listens. That's the way to do it. Not everybody benches. It's not Mezumin. Mezumin is 1 person benches. So it's Halach and Shulchan Aruch. Look at number 6. Siman Kuf Pei Gimel Siv Zayin.
So you don't bench?
That's why I like to lead.
Fine. But I answered you, and I don't bench, I just listen.
You want to know what you should do?
No, nobody does.
Listen for the next couple minutes of the shir. Nachay nadavar.
Well, not just listen, focus.
Shekol echad mehamasubin yomer belachash im hamevarech. It is correct. Listen to this. It is correct that every one of the mesubin says quietly with the mevarech kol bracha bracha va'afilu hachasimais, even the end. Says in Mishnah Brura. Hainu after medina haya yoser nachan sheyishma hamesubin kol aberchas mazon piyam mezamein. Really, Meikar Adin, only the mezamein should make the bracha and everyone listen. Why is that better, Rabbi Say? No, why would it be better if the mezamein makes the bracha and everybody else listens? Why?
He said the bracha. Bravo.
B'roi v'am hadras melech, better for one person to do it than for everyone to do it separately. V'hu yotzim v'berchasai v'atzman lo yivarch klal. Even though really b'roi v'am hadras melech, the answer is that nobody can pay attention anymore, and therefore already in the times of the Mechaber, he suggests that let everybody say the benching themselves, because there's no way that a person is going to be able to listen the whole time to the Mezamin. Kamakim ba'avur she'motzei ba'amrasino rabim she'hamasubin mesichan daita. The Mesubin talk, vein mechavnu l'devim brach klal, v'nimsa shechasan berchas amazon legadli, u'mevatlen asei da'iraisi v'yadayim, lekach nochen k'ayom yoyser sham Mesubin yoymer ba'atzman b'lachash kol mila mila imam mevalech, mevarch kedei she'yavarchu yachdav. V'ayidei zeh, v'nikra ayidei zeh berchas zimon. Now here the Mishnah Berurah doesn't say the exact reason we said earlier that people can't focus. He says worse than that, people are going to talk. Maybe the reason why he says that is because in the times of the Shulchan Aruch, we know people could focus. The Haraya, the Shulchan Aruch is the one who gives the Eitzah, that if you're not sure if he said Yal v'Yava, listen to the Shech Tzibur. But here the Mishnah Berurah is bringing another issue. Here's another example. Here's another example. Look at number 8. The Torah, Kasav Adoni Avizal B'Tshuva, Birchas Yotzer V'Arvis, Anu Omer Imshech Tzibur B'Nachas. I have a question. In Hillcrest, when they daven Marav, does everyone daven Marav, or just the Shliach Tzibur says the brachas and everyone just listens?
Everybody davens Marav.
Everyone daven. You hear Hersta Maisa? In Hillcrest, everybody davens.
Nowhere else.
You know why? The Rosh says that's the right thing to do. Kasav Adoni Avizal B'Tshuva Berchas Yotzer Or V'Arvis. We say it with the shots. Why? Ki ein Adam Yachal Lechavein Taderim Shots B'Shtika. For the 2 minutes it takes to say Yotzer Or and Avarabba, there is no human being alive who could focus for that long. After all, it's the ADHD generation. Who could focus for 2 minutes back 1,000 years ago? Nobody could focus that long, and therefore you should say it together with the shots. But you'll say, what about the few people that could focus? Even if you did listen to the shots, but what if you're daydreaming for a few moments in middle? If your mind wanders, it's not shoymeach. So here we have, as clear as day, black and white, the Torah says that if you're using shoymeach ha'oina and your mind wanders, lo yatsa. And here he's saying it on a 2-minute thing. And he's saying you can't be yotzer or and avarabba, Avasoilam, whatever you say, because your mind's going to wander. But if you said the words, kavanah is not integral. So here we have 3 examples. The Bir Halacha is bothered over here. B'chlal, who cares if your mind wanders? So you missed a few words, but it's not ma'akev, right? There's no by yotzer or and avarabba. If you missed a few words in the middle, it's not the end of the world. Even if you omitted them completely, you could still be yotzei the bracha b'diavad. Okay, that's an issue that the Bir Halacha deals with. But here we have l'chayra 3 clear proofs. Then the world of shomeach ka'ina, it's not as simple as you think. Okay, everyone's standing at the table. Standing at the table. That doesn't cut it. Are you focused on every word that the leader is saying? And if you're not, then lo yatsa.
What makes the Megillah at that level that if your mind wanders a little bit of any word in the entire Megillah, even though you understood the basic concept of what happened?
Because we passing like a mayor, tzarach l'koisa kula. We passing, you have to hear every word, and we're just proving.
What makes it that level?
What do you mean? What makes it? The halacha does.
If you read this, the Torah on Shabbos.
Yeah, you also have to hear every word.
But it's not midoraisa, it's divrei Kabbalah.
Okay, divrei Kabbalah, divrei doraisa. What do you mean?
Divrei doraisa.
Okay. Parsha Zachar also, if you miss a word, lo yatsa. Kriyas HaTorah, It's like a hybrid on the Yachid, on the Tzibur. But the Yachid has to hear every word. You can't walk out for one word. When you walk out for a word, they're in Kriyas HaTorah, they're Oizvei Hashem Yichlu. You can't leave unless you have an oinus. Oizvei Hashem Yichlu. But Megillah says the Yachid has to read Kula. Well, I'm just proving to you, we have 3 rayas, that when you use Shomea Ka'ina, it is necessary not only to hear the words, it's necessary to focus on the words that you're hearing. Which is a problem. Because if it's not humanly possible to do Shomea Ka'ina and Chazar Sashatz, and you can't even do it on a 3-minute thing like Yotzar Ara and Avarabba, how in the world are you going to be Yotzar Megillah Esther?
What about Tkiyah Shofar? It's not, you don't have to say words, but you have to hear the
Same thing with Tkiyah.
sounds that...
Same thing with Tkiyah. If you're looking in a sefer during Tkiyah Shofar, you're not Yotzar. I mean, as long as you heard the basic 30 or whatever, or maybe Midaraisa less.
But even with the 30, I mean,
you have to be focused. You have to be focused on the Tkiyah. You can't be thinking about other things. Avada.
It's very shver.
No, it's not shver. Shver that people don't do it.
What's on the flip side on the Shliach Tzibur?
Shliach Tzibur has to be mechavein to be moitzi the people. But that's only a one-time kavana in the beginning. He doesn't have to think every word. Achatarpnim for them. Ramachim for them. Vayihi for them. It's one time, one mindset in the beginning.
But if he's not focused...
He doesn't have to be focused. He said the words. What does he have to be focused?
No, if he's
He
not...
doesn't have to be focused. He could be thinking about he could be thinking about pizza the whole time when he's Yotzei. He could be in outer space. He reads the words, he's Yotzei. There's no... Kavana is not ma'akev. Kavana is not ma'akev. But Shmiya is ma'akev. And in order to do Shmiya, you need Kavana. There's no inyan of Kavana by Megillah Esther.
But if you're not Makayim the mitzvah because you had a failing of some sort, are you still Yotzei other people?
What do you mean? Why?
Al-Tokayah, for example.
Again, I just said his mind doesn't...
During the Tekiyas. So he's not Makayim the mitzvah because his mind...
He could be Mitzvah, because, He's
So
just a Hechsher Mitzvah. Yes.
Even though he's not Yotzei. Same thing with the one that's learning the Megillah.
In the Megillah, the guy is Yotzei. Why would he not be Yotzei?
But if his mind wanders during...
I just said the Kavana is not Ma'akev. Kavana is not Ma'akev, but Shmiya is Ma'akev. So the question that we have to deal with first, which is a little bit of a safety hatch, is that if we brought 3 proofs from 3 different halachas that Shomea Ka'ina doesn't work if your mind wanders, then could somebody tell me why doesn't anybody say this by Megillah Esther? I mean, the Shulchan Aruch says, the Mishnah Berurah says that you can't be Yotzei Chazar Sashatz for Yalav Yavai because your mind will wander. And the Mechaber says you can't be Yotzei benching because your mind will wander. And the Rosh says you can't be Yotzei Berchas Kriyishma because your mind will wander. So could somebody tell me why didn't anybody say that you can't be Yotzei Mikra Megillah because your mind will wander? I mean, that's 10 times as long.
This is not practical. It's impossible.
Wow. So he should have said you're not Yotzei, exactly.
The whole Klal Yisrael is not going to be Yotzei.
Yes. So what do you want him to say? So what's your alternative? That they are Yotzei? You're not Yotzei. But it's not true. It's wrong. So why doesn't anybody say that? I mean, it's not pride. No, don't say that. That's.
It's not the chorus.
No, just not correct thinking.
Why would the Mishnah Berurah poskin that one should read the Megillah right after the fast and not break his fast first?
Because you can't eat before you do a mitzvah. It's not the Mishnah Berurah's psak. It's halach. Everybody said that.
Not even concentration, okay.
You concentrate better when you're fasting than
at 7 o'clock at night.
Once you eat, your mind is clouded with all kinds of ruchais. Your mind is clearest on a tinus.
No.
Bottom line is, if all the poskim say you can't do chazar sashas, you can't do berchas kriyishma, you can't do benching, then how are you supposed to do Megillah? Why doesn't somebody say you better be focused on Megillah Esther? Well, the Kuntra Shirei Halacha says like this. It could be the reason why the poskim don't mention it, because there's a klal by Megillah Esther that we don't find anywhere else. That is, let's say you hear 2 people blowing shofar at the same time. No, yatsa or la yatsa? La yatsa. Trei kali, la mishamai. Let's say you hear 2 people laning at the same time. Yatsa or la yatsa? La yatsa. Let's say you hear 2 people saying chazar sashat at the same time. La yatsa. But if you hear 2 people laning the Megillah at the same time, Yatsa. Why? Aidi de Chavivi Yahiv Daita Lishmaya. Since Megillah is so beloved, it's possible to hear two things at the same time.
Are they leaning?
Since, huh?
Shiur is not beloved?
No.
Are they leaning the same words together?
Yeah. Or even, chayra. Or even if not, maybe.
Even if not? How could
You heard both. You could hear two things at the same time. Because you love it so much, you'll be able to pay close attention. So it could be the reason why the poskim do not mention this is because it's obvious nobody's mind is going to wander. Megillah Esther is so endeared by people, they'll be so focused on it. It's not necessary to say, don't do Shemea Ka'ina because people's mind will wander. People will listen to Megillah Esther.
On what basis do we make that assumption?
Based on the cloud, because the Gemara says it's chaviva. We have a cloud by Megillah. We have a halachic principle. It's chaviva. But practically, Bisman Hazeh, it's very difficult to say such a thing. It's not true. Bisman Hazeh, people's mind wanders. I don't think anybody here will say, "Yeah, I love Megillah Esther so much, my mind doesn't wander." And that is why there's a tshuva on the Eretz Tzvi who paskins halach l'mais. Who's the Eretz Tzvi? The Kushik lover. Reb Tzvi Frumer, the Rashiva of Shiva Chachmei Lublin, after Rav Meir Shapiro, he paskins halach l'maisa. If you sat and you by the Megillah and your mind wandered, lo yatsa. So the problem is, now the good news is that at least you'll get 3 mitzvos this Purim. You'll get Matanas Avyonim, you get Shalach Manas, and you get Suda.
And what about Megillah?
But according to him, unless you're laning the Megillah, you ain't getting Mikra Megillah.
I assume by that yeshiva they had no noise by the Haman, because that clearly would be a disruption and cause your mind to wander. It's impossible.
To get into Chachmei Lublin is not so.
No, but if you made noise, if they made noise to
Okay, so that's why the Balkari repeats the word Haman after, and this way he writes very clearly that the definition of Shmiya is not that the sound hits your eardrums, but rather you were focused on it. Which is a big problem. How in the world are you supposed to be Yotzei Mikra Megillah? So what are you going to say, that no one in Klal Yisrael except for the Balkari is Yotzei Mikra Megillah? Can't say such a thing. But what are you supposed to do? The Mishnah Berurah says you can't even do Shemei Ka'ina on Chazar Sashatz. The Rush says you can't even do it on 2 Birchas Kriyas. How are you supposed to do it for Mikra Megillah?
It's almost, he's telling you have to read it yourself. It's the only way. If you read it yourself and say it, don't need the Kabbalah.
Yeah, so if you're saying it quietly along with the Balkari, then you're good.
If you can hear the words.
No, even, what?
Well, you have to hear your own words, right?
Well, if you don't hear yourself saying it, you're Yotzei B'diavad. But l'chachila, it needs to be shama. It needs to be hishmiya la'aznav. But
the neighbor's going to get angry.
Here's my problem with people who lay in the Megillah to themselves. Most people are not about Balkari. They will not pronounce the words correctly. Do you know if it's nafal or noifel? If you don't pronounce it correctly, you're for sure not yotza. Even some milel milraz change the meaning of the word. The Esther ba or ba'a, it depends. It depends where, it depends when. Changes the meaning of the word. Now that, some of the poskim Shlomo Zalman Auerbach has Megalan, that the word means what it's supposed to mean. It doesn't mean the way you say it.
That's good.
But still, the Yashav and the Yoshev, there's no question you're not Yotzei if you don't pronounce it correctly. So you're going to say it along. I don't recommend saying it along with the Balkari, unless you're confident that you know every word. So the question is, how are you supposed to be Yotzei L'chatchila Megillas Esther? So that's what we're here for today. Now, I want to clarify this idea that listening is not just the sound hit your eardrum, but a certain level of understanding is needed to be considered hearing. Yaakov, tell me something in Persian. Something I don't know. You asked me to repeat it? I may not repeat it correctly. So becher. Yeah? Very good. Tell me some other stuff. Chetoli? Chetori? I said chetoli. I thought it was li. Okay. You tell me a sentence in another language, even though I heard it, I may not even be able to repeat it. Why? Because if I don't understand it, I'm not even hearing the words. You know, if somebody speaks very quickly in another language, if you're not familiar with the language, it hit your eardrums, but you didn't hear it. That means Havana is needed for Shmiya. He brings
even in English, you go down south, a real southern, and they who's to a southerner speak, many times you can't understand
what right
because of the accent.
So what do you see? What do you see from there? You see that hearing is not just the sound waves hitting your eardrum. Hearing requires Havana. For example, in the paragraph Nira Lani is Daiti, in the middle of the paragraph, Oid, the Hashemeya ve'ena mechavein, eno shemeya klal oisan amilos ketikunan. Someone who hears and is not mechavein does not hear at all those words. The proof is, if you hear a language that you don't recognize, not only don't you understand it, you can't even hear it. Even if, let's say, I start saying it along with you, I'm not going to say it correctly. The only time you'll be able to repeat what the person said is if he enunciates extremely carefully. But if he doesn't, if he just speaks kedarkai, you won't even hear it, let alone understand it. So therefore, says the kosher Glover in the paragraph that begins V'al Kain. See that? V'al Kain. Gam misha mevin, someone who understands Megillah Esther. Ach she'enoi mesim liboy al advarim, if he's not paying attention. Ufaina liboy ledvarim acherim, and his mind wanders. Enoi shoymea klal, he is not considered listening. Baruch ata, rak bruchata. V'alken afilu man da'amar mitzvah se'en tzrichas kavana v'afilu mitzvah shebedim rekamah shemea below kavana lav shmiyayi. So what do you do? Their answer is, there's only one eitzah. You ready for the eitzah? Now only listen if you want to be yotzei the mitzvah of Mikra Megillah. V'hayin yana nira la'niyas daiti oid tehamabed b'Megillah b'shasha karin ha'Megillah. Someone who's looking in the Megillah. Oye, b'shmane eser b'tay chasida b'shash atzibus u'spalel u'v'chol eish nizgar hu moitzi es atzma eish mistakel v'makam kriyas hashatz. If every time you check yourself, you are following along. In other words, if every time I catch myself, I'm up to the right place, that meets the threshold, even if your mind wanders, because that means you're focused on the word being read. Enough. How do I know I'm focused? Because I'm up to the right place. That level of focus, he paskins, meets the threshold of shmiya. In other words, the whole time my mind could be what I'm going to break my fast on. But obviously my mind is enough on the Megillah that I'm able to know which word I'm up to. Then yatsa. But if, let's say, in the middle of the Megillah, I'm like, where are they up to? Oh, here! Hopefully you'll be Yotzei Mikra Megillah tomorrow morning.
Well, that's what I try to do. So I have a kosher Megillah. To try to follow.
You don't need a kosher Megillah.
No, okay, but I'm telling you, it's difficult, especially when the kids make noise with the Hama. You're listening to try to follow along and be exactly on the same word as the Balkari. It's not simple.
You don't have to, again, not to say along.
No. You just don't follow with my eyes. It's very hard. There's always some sort of distraction. You miss it, and you're behind a word or two, and you try to catch up in your own mind to where the Balkari is. There's always some kind of, especially if you have little kids in the shul.
What could I tell you? This is his eitzah. He says, no, all you have to know is be right up to the right place. Dem loikein. Otherwise, eich efsher b'mikra shehu mabed b'oisei makam u'v'oisei mila shashatz kari ata. How in the world could your mind be focused on the word that the Sheikh's... In other words, if you're looking in the Chumash at a different word than he's saying, there's no way that you're focused properly. That means your eye is the faculty of sight is drawn after the faculty of hearing. In other words, the fact that your eye is up to the correct word means that your faculty of listening is drawing the faculty of sight. That's enough considered listening to be yotzei the mitzvah. Look,
so if your mind is wandering but your finger is on the right place...
so certainly, if your finger is on the right place the whole time, you're definitely yotzei. Well, if your eye is on the right place the whole time, you're yotzei. But if, every so often, you sort of remove yourself from dreamland to try to figure out where the Shliach Tzibur is up to, I don't know what to tell you. Doesn't it seem from all these sources that, if we find by Birchas Kriyishma that if your mind wanders momentarily, then those words don't count, then why would Megillah Esther be any different?
Ouch.
It's your right,
Is what?
Shema is your right.
Birchas Kriyishma they say it by, right? Birchas Kriyishma is not Deraisa. And Mikra Megillah during the day might even be more than D'Rabbanan. It might be Midivei Soifrim. So, for example, it's a very interesting nafkamina lahalacha. We know that the Ikar Chiyuv of the Megillah, Tosfos says on Daf Daled, is the day reading. The day reading is certainly Divrei Kabbalah, right? The night reading maybe is not Divrei Kabbalah, because the Gemara says in Megillah, Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Chayiv Adam Likros says in Megillah, B'layla, V'lashnoi Sabayayim. So, some learn, the Shas Binyan Shloimeh learns, it's a takana Rabbi Shua ben Levi to learn Megillah at night. So it's a late D'Rabbanan, which is very difficult to say. L'char the Gemara is mashma not like that, because the Mishnah later on says, Kol Hayom Kasher L'Kriyas Megillah, and the Gemara says, what about the reading at the night? The Gemara says the Mishnah is not talking about the reading of the night. That means the Gemara feels that there was a reading of the night even in the times of the Mishnah. It seems to be against the Shas Shus ben Shloimeh. But the Shagas Aryeh says, and others, the reading of the night is a D'Rabbanan, not a late D'Rabbanan like from Rabbi Shua ben Levi, but an early D'Rabbanan from the times of Tanoim. But I'll tell you a nafkamino lahalacha between the night laning and the day reading. If someone is mesupik during the night, did I hear the Megillah or did I not hear the Megillah? You don't have to hear it again. So you have on Lakula. During the day, Mishnah Berurah says, Divrei Kabbalah, Divrei Torah, you have to hear it again. It's a major nafkamina between the night and the day. So let's see, bottom line, Rav Felder says, Ach yesh b'zeh oid eitzah, besides looking inside, is pointing. V'hu sheyabet l'toich ha-chumash v'yitein etzboi al kol teva. You should look in the Chumash and put your finger on every word. K'mashi kasav v'yeretz tzvi, that if you look in the Megillah and every time you remember, you find yourself, you're looking in the right place, even if your mind wanders, it's good enough. What's the rationale? Why do we say that if your mind wanders but you're following in the right word, that's good enough? He says the rationale is, how is it possible that coincidentally you happen to be looking at the right word that the Shliach Tzibur is up to? Wow! If you were a betting man and you had to guess, will a random person in the shul be looking at the same word that the Shliach Tzibur is saying? It's only possible if the guy hears. If he didn't hear, it would never happen. Must be the sense of sight is drawn after the sense of hearing. And then Rav Felder concludes he heard the same thing for Aaron Cutler, that if every moment a person knows where they're up to, that's called shomeya. So Rabbi said, I'm not here, I'm not looking to bust your chops, make your life miserable. I didn't say I didn't, I just say I'm not here to do that. But this is something to really think about seriously, that this is not like an invented chumrah. We have a Mishnah Berurah who says you can't use Shemea Ka'ina by Chazar Sashatz. You have a Mechaber who says you can't use it by benching. You have a Tur who says you can't use it by Berchas Kriyishma.
Over there that you follow each word, by benching or by Chazar Sashatz.
The answer is because there's a much simpler solution there. Say it yourself. But by Megillah, That's not an easy solution because most people don't have their own Megillah. Most people are not familiar with how to pronounce every word of the Megillah. It's not such a simple eitzah.
Are you better off with a Chumash than Megillah?
I think, off the record or on the record, I think you're better off with a Chumash. Because if you have a Megillah, you're right, if you miss a word you could catch up with a Megillah. But if you don't pronounce the word correctly, then you blew it. But you have a Chumash and you miss, so you didn't read the whole thing. Right? If you have a Chumash, it's like saying those words Baal Peh. But b'diavad, if you read like less than half of the Megillah Baal Peh, you're Yotzei. So at least you're Yotzei b'diavad.
One major assumption in that statement.
Yeah.
That is that the people who are reading the Megillah, the Olam and the Tzibur, are saying it.
Correct. Right. In other words,
They don't say it correctly.
Yeah.
Forget it all. Whatever the Tzibur does with their finger on that is.
Yeah, absolutely. To make sure you hear Kriya.
Many Bali Kriya who don't, because they're not so makbid.
Well, it depends. Look, S and Ace, Yatza. Kal and Kyle, Yatza. Ba and Ba. That's a very that's a significant shaila. Significant shaila. I happen to see this here. Shlomo Zalman says it's okay. The word means what it's supposed to mean, and not the way the person happens to emphasize. But I don't know if that's so pashut. But certainly it's proper to hear the Megillah from a Balkari who's medactic.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.